All righty. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the CryoHelpers podcast. I'm your host, Christian Catalano, and today I am accompanied with Sarkis with Cryo Insurance Pros. They are a insurance broker specializing in cryotherapy, flotation therapy, and other parts of the wellness industry. And today I've got Sarkis on for a one-on-one interview to educate you guys on one of the most important factors of owning a cryotherapy business, which is making sure everything's safe, reliable, and having insurance in case something does go wrong. With that being said, welcome, Sarkis. How are you doing today?
Oh, thank you. I'm doing great, Christian. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to educating the business owners on what really they should be concerned about.
All righty. Yeah. So, one of the things that I want to ask, is, and this is something that I ask everyone who comes on the podcast, how did you guys get into, cryotherapy and, flotation therapy? Like, what kind of made you guys go into that route?
That's a very good question because I went to have lunch somewhere and next door was a cryotherapy center and I heard about it and I said, you know what, I'm going to go in. I want to ask them if I could put my hand in the chamber.
Yeah.
So they actually let me do that, but before I can feel how cold it was on my hand, I felt it penetrate my shoe, and my foot was much colder than my hand. And I said, you guys are crazy, but this is something that's actually very fascinating because I am into wellness and um, eating healthy and just the whole thing just fascinated me. So I went back to the office and I did a little research, and I realized that it was a severely underserved industry.
Mm-hmm.
And things kind of took off from there. I realized people were paying $8, $9, $10,000 a year for insurance, and I said, no, there's got to be a better solution for these business owners. And I realized, as with any growing industry in the United States, about 80% of the business owners are going to be first-time business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, we have an opportunity here, but as long as I can add value, then this whole thing would make sense. And we've done that, and it's worked great for us.
Awesome. And how long have you guys been in business? And then when did you guys, kind of adapt into, the health and wellness industry?
So I started Calco back in 2008. So during the recession,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I nearly went bankrupt. What was I thinking? Focusing on small business, but because I did that, now I can navigate through any economic situation.
Right.
Um, The cryotherapy has been about, I think we're going on our second year, um, or maybe a little bit longer. Uh, so yeah, it's been about that long.
All right. So, wow, yeah. So you've been doing this for a while, and then cryotherapy. You've been doing that for also for quite a while. Okay, awesome. So normal business insurance versus cryotherapy, like versus a cryotherapy a center. What's the big how do you go about uh you know taking on those clients? What is a cryotherapy center client like, as opposed to before cryotherapy in cryotherapy insurance pros, because there's a lot of not necessarily, well, there's a lot of controversy when it comes to cryotherapy, especially in the whole body cryo part of things. With working with liquid nitrogen, people get burned. There's that
Right.
added element of something could always go wrong, and and you don't really get that when you're providing insurance for a, I don't know, I was gonna say a bakery. That's just the first thing that came
Right.
to mind, but yeah,
Flower shop. Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, the, with the cryotherapy centers, and like I said, 80% of the people are going to be first time in their doing business in their lives.
Mhm.
Oh, and then the rest, the other 20%, have probably never done anything that involved um, such a high level of risk, because all it takes is a machine to malfunction. That's all it takes. The machine could get a virus. The parts on the machine can break. And we've seen, so far, we have about 8 burns, I think, burn cases. And of course, people lawyer up immediately, and
Mhm.
these cases are in the low to mid 6 figures. So this is very serious, especially if you have anybody of some like a celebrity or that you can. That's that's a policy limit, claim limit.
Right. Someone with
Uh,
a lot of pull.
yeah, because their appearance is worth a lot of money. That's what they do. I mean, if uh, an Instagram celebrity gets burned versus me getting burned, I don't use my looks for
Right.
a living. I use my brain. But so the big difference between, say, operating a flower shop and operating um, a cryotherapy center is, for a flower shop, you can buy yourself a policy, walk down the street to like a State Farm office or something, and walk out of with the policy for about, I don't know what it would be, maybe $500 or $600. Because what goes wrong at a flower shop? Maybe there's a slip and fall claim. Maybe there's a fire at the location, but not much else. Versus with the cryotherapy, um, they essentially need 2 key coverages. Well, there's more, but the first 2 are the general liability and the professional liability.
Mhm.
General liability is going to cover the slip and fall claims. It's going to cover the marketing claims. The professional liability is going to cover the actual service. So when they walk in and somehow they get burned from the liquid nitrogen, that's where the professional liability is necessary. Without that, if anybody listening, if you went online, and uh, did a Google search and some company came up advertising $39 a month online, and you bought it, you thought you were, yeah, they got a great deal. Guess what? There's absolutely no way, no way you have professional liability coverage for a cryotherapy center. You may have it like for maybe like a day spa, or it'll be classed as something else.
Mhm.
So that is the biggest problem. And I see these lawsuits, and they always claim that they weren't warned properly. They'll say that the take-in sheet didn't have enough disclosures, and maybe there was not an arbitration agreement. And the thing is, you're going to get people with different skin types, with different sensitivities. Um, so there's no telling. I mean, some people can die from eating chocolate, from drinking milk. Let alone
Right.
minus 200 something degrees. So just because um, you know someone does well, their friends does well with it, they get great results, it absolutely does not mean there's going to be some bonehead who's maybe had a few drinks and then decides, I'm going to go do my cryotherapy session, and they go in, guess what, they're perspiring, and that'll cause a burn.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm glad that you put it that way. Um,
Or, I'm sorry to cut you off,
no, go
or
ahead.
they might have some underlying medical condition
Hmm.
that might cause them to have a heart attack or something else.
Right.
And
And
you don't have a doctor. Nobody has a doctor doing an examination before. This is not like plastic surgery.
it's completely reliant on what your client tells you or what they agree to on the form. But there's no, someone could have a sensitive skin issue that they didn't know about because they've never experienced anything like this, or they could, you know, not tell you about a certain condition that they had, and then
Hmm.
try just because they saw that, you know, because their friend, you know, referred them and they really wanted to try it, uh, or
And what
then.
they'll say is, you should have known. That's what they'll do in their claim. You should have known.
Mhm.
Should have done a better job at doing that.
Yeah, and then
There's
there.
no way to defend it. If anybody ends up in court, remember the jury is sympathetic to the victim, no matter what. If you're a business, forget it. Chances are, out of the 12 jurors, not one is going to be a business owner.
That's a good way of putting it. I hadn't even thought about that. And then a lot of the times, you know, we actually covered, you know, what types of, you know, situations makes a client no good for, you know, cryotherapy. You know, they can't go into the chamber. And one of the things that we talked about was, you know, there are, I can't remember the term, but it's pretty much talking about what the can't, the can'ts and the won'ts of, you know, we won't allow you to get into the pod, or, you know, for this reason you can't. You know, there's certain,
Right.
it's different for every single cryotherapy location. Some people allow people of this age to go in, some people allow uh, people of, you know, this age to go in. They put the age cap at this range. Someone would never even think about putting an age range with their cryotherapy center to begin with. um,
Right.
and then the employees also have a role in this, because if you're bringing on a new person, they might not know all the contraindications. There we go. Boom.
Did it.
Contraindications. They they might not know all of them, or they might not know to ask all of the correct questions to make sure
Yeah.
that they have everything put into play. Um,
And you know what? Sometimes you can do all you can. We had a claim where a parent brought in her autistic son,
mhm,
who was a minor, for a session. The next time, the brother brought the younger brother, okay,
mhm.
who's autistic. So the second time, he got burned. So they sued, saying, you should not have allowed my older son to bring in my younger brother. And good luck in court on that one. It is not possible. And one thing I would add is that when somebody is injured, you are probably not going to hear about it, because typically what people do is they'll go talk to a friend, family member, then they'll say, "Oh my God, you need to, like, maybe you should talk to a lawyer." So they'll refer a lawyer, refer it out to a lawyer, and then you will hear about a lawsuit sometimes a year, sometimes a year and a half later. Just depends on what state you're in and what the statute of limitations are.
Right.
And the reason they do that is to build, they're building a case, so they're billing billable hours. So what they'll do is that maybe a year and a half later, they'll come back and say, you know, we're going to make a legal demand for $165,000. Here are the burns, here it is, and, you know, or I mean, sometimes I'll just go try to get a jury trial right away, but you know that doesn't usually happen. They have to go through some sort of process. So that's the other thing that business owners have to worry about is it's a surprise. Every day you wake up, you don't know what could possibly go wrong.
Mhm.
So, but thankfully, when the right insurance policy is in place, then at least you know it's not, there's no insurance policy that's going to cover 100% of any situation. There's always going to be some exceptions, right? But that's the best thing you can have,
Right.
is an insurance policy, so at least you can continue on with your business. And I will say business is evolving. We have new threats, It's becoming harder and harder to do business in America. We have laws now that require a business owner to protect customers' information. And if it gets stolen, you might not know about it. I think it's called a MAJ card. That might be mispronouncing it, but we recently had a client, and this was actually outside of the cryotherapy industry, but they do online sales, so they were taking credit cards online. And it's a fairly big company, and they had 25,000 records stolen. And what it was is they penetrated their website and they added, so I guess, a file which it was a credit card schemer.
Mm.
So somehow they figured it out, and their site was down for about 2 weeks. They couldn't make any sales, and now they have to notify 25,000 people. It's going to cost $25 about per notification. It's terrible for business, and they can get together and file a class action lawsuit against you, or they can sue you individually for allowing their information to get hacked. Even if you've had, all your antiviruses, they'll say, okay, well, that's great, but,
It still happened.
it still happened, There's no such thing as a hack-proof website. The White House has been hacked. The Pentagon has been hacked. Everybody gets hacked. Experian got hacked. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, my my what is the Department of Justice or the local, yeah, I think it was the Department of Justice or whatever it was. Someone, I guess, got bored and decided to hack them, and I had my credit card information stolen not too long ago
Oh,
because
wow.
yeah, they hacked their website, and I had recently just paid for a speeding ticket, and I got a letter in the mail saying, "Hey, sorry to tell you this, but 3 weeks ago someone stole your information, uh, and there's nothing we can do about it. Just
All right.
go change your go get a new card." Pretty much, I was like, "Wow." And and that just puts into perspective, yeah, anything can happen.
Yeah, they do engineering. So the other thing that they'll do is they'll they'll intercept an email from a vendor, one of your vendors, and they'll say, please update our bank account information.
Right.
So you'll update the banking account information, and you'll start paying a different bank.
Yeah, that's just.
And actually, there is coverage for that. We have that available.
Oh wow, that's really
And
nice.
then that's through cyber liability.
And that's through the professional liability or just the?
No. That's separate. It's cyber liability.
Mm, got it.
So I mean, it just doesn't end. Like like I said a few minutes ago, it just doesn't end. But again, you just have to get insured. You have to get educated. You have to buy from the right broker. You can. I mean, people call us sometimes. I don't even know how they find us, but they'll ask us for a construction policy because they're building, an apartment complex or something, and I don't have expertise in it, so I don't sell it. Other brokers will just, will try to sell whatever they can, to make a living. But so I guess with that said, what I'm trying to say is, I think Warren Buffett had the saying about if you don't know jewelry, know your jeweler. So if you don't know insurance, make sure you buy your insurance policy from somebody who really understands your industry.
Right. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that a lot.
Yeah. And cheap
Uh,
and convenient is not the way to go. It's taken off. Buy insurance from an app, but guess what? You never get to read the policy form. Even if you do read it, and it's 78 pages, there's no way you're going to sit there and look through the app and look through your phone and read 78 pages. It's just not going to happen. You still need a broker, because what we do is I'll review the policy, and I've made plenty of changes to the policy, like from the time that we first started to today,
Mhm.
where I've gone back to underwriting and said, hey, listen, I don't think this particular item is in the favor of um, the client. And they came back, they said, yeah, you know what, you are right. We didn't realize that because we started this thing with, this is sort of a general blanket form that we're using for all the wellness industries, but thank you for pointing this out. And, we'll amend it. And so we improve coverage. I read policy form, and try to do my best to add value. And that's the key is to add value.
Mhm. And now, when it comes to depicting the rates for these centers, there's different risks involved with the different type of machines that
Mm-hmm.
they have inside the center. And there's a huge debate going on in the cryotherapy industry of liquid nitrogen versus electric.
Right.
And one of the questions that I never see asked is, is it, do you, like, I don't know if you'd be able to tell, is there a way, is an electric chamber, like, in the eyes of an insurance broker, safer than a liquid nitrogen machine, and would that affect their uh, professional liability rates and their business rates?
It's a very good question because scientifically I'm not educated.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously cold air, it should be safer than the liquid nitrogen. I'm just as an assumption, but I don't think it'll matter. I think in either case, if somebody has some lotion on their skin,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's minus 200 because of liquid nitrogen, is minus 200 because of cold air, I think it's going to burn.
Right. Yeah.
Either.
Uh,
So
that's what I was thinking as well, because yeah, the only risk that it takes off, because like one of the huge, like, things that people say, and I mean, I don't have a cryotherapy center, so I don't really, the debate doesn't affect me anyway. It affects me as much as it affects you. But something that people come up with, and they say that it's safer, but the only risk that it takes away would be that there's no liquid nitrogen, so your client doesn't have a risk of suffocating uh, in the pod. And I guess that takes that away. So you don't have to worry about that. But out of all the cases that that you guys work with, them passing out because of the gas, I'd assume is slim to none when compared to you know the real threat, which is the immediate threat, which is to be burned, right? And
right.
they're both going down to the same temperatures.
Yeah,
Or
the liquid nitrogen is safe as long as it's applied correctly and the machine is not malfunctioning.
Mhm.
Then it has been shown to be safe. There's probably millions of sessions already, and a very small percentage of people who are getting injured, and that's normal.
Right. I get
That's
my
with
cryotherapy
everything.
sessions
Yeah, yeah,
from liquid nitrogen, and I haven't been burned, but I also have a really good center that makes sure that I move around in the pod and don't get burned.
yeah. We had one, and we have yet to figure out. Um, Actually, I need to follow up on it because I had to figure out what machine it was. Basically, the machine malfunctioned, and liquid nitrogen actually dripped on this man's arm.
Oh,
Yeah, and the burn got worse and worse. And this man happened to be a lawyer, so it's
that.
a
Oh,
six-figure payout. Yeah. Quietly write the check before it gets more complicated.
ah, that would. Yeah, that would not be a fun situation. Yeah, that's ouch.
But I think
I
it was the
couldn't.
older machine, probably several years old. I have to follow up on it. There's a lot of, not a lot. There's not a lot of machines out there, but from the machines that are out there, they're, for the most part, they're good machines.
Right. Yeah, they're all like shoot like I really am impressed with the technology. Like it is really awesome. Um but yeah, if it's not kept up with and it's not, checked, then it's a risky business. Or because it only takes one.
Right.
Right. Like that's just one of the most important things, it only takes one. And then, speaking about, cryotherapy, you know, my business personally is heavily involved with the cryoslimming machines and the
Okay.
practices therein. And I know some of them are having problems actually getting liability insurance on their machine.
Yeah, I'll tell you what the situation is. We've actually been contacted by distributor and say, hey, we'd like to offer our services, but they eventually ended up contacting us because we keep issuing the certificates. And what was happening is they're trying to make a sale, but the insurance part would drag on for weeks. And finally, they contacted us. So we were like, look, this is, and here I'll explain this what the situation is. So if the cryoskin machine, the cryoslimming body contouring machine does not require a physician, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that company can market to whoever, chiropractors' offices, beauty salons, massage places, places that do eyelash extensions, beauty centers.
Right.
Um, so they'll have a general liability policy, a professional liability policy. So the moment they go to their insurance broker and say, well, I'm getting this body contouring device, the insurance broker goes to underwriting. The underwriter is like, I am,
Yeah.
and then a week later, finally, the underwriter's like, no, this is not something that we want. So what we do is we offer two options. Either we take over the entire account, or we can just write the policy for the professional services using the um, body contouring device, and we can insure it for the actual device for fire and theft.
For fire and theft.
Yeah.
Now, is that as far as the coverage goes, is for fire and theft, or do you guys have a specific, like the professional liability, or would
Oh
it?
yeah, profession. Yeah, we can do the so if someone that comes to us and let's say they have a salon and they have professional liability for the salon and general liability, and um, they come to us because their insurance company does not want to take on the body contouring
Mm-hmm.
machine, then if they come to us, then what we would do is just give them professional liability coverage
Got it.
just for that machine, and then we can, if their insurance won't write the property part, so if they won't insure the actual device for fire or theft, then we can do that as well.
Right. Yeah, because I've had two people talk to me about that, how they're only covered for fire, theft, and flood for the machine, but they can't seem to get anywhere further than that. So that's good that you guys provide that. And like you said, like, so if they already have it with another account, then you have two different options. Either you guys take on the whole account, or you just said, yeah, we'll just do this part of it for you guys, and you can keep.
Yeah, and it seems for well, it's sort of half and half. People will sometimes will say, yeah, that's better, and just go ahead and take over the entire account. And some will say, no, I just want to do this separately. I'm only paying $500 a year for the other one. I want to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so okay, whatever works for you.
All right. Yeah. Awesome. Um, that makes a lot of sense. And now for flotation therapy, because I know there's a lot of float and cryo centers out there. We've worked with a handful of them ourselves.
Hmm.
Uh, do you go about? How do you go about taking on? Is there any real difference? I'd assume that there is when it comes to insuring a float center versus a cryo center, because there's a bunch of
Yeah,
there's different risks involved for each one, and then obviously when you get a float and cryo center, now you're dealing with
Yeah, you go from the hot to cold. So the biggest problem with having a hot service and a cold service is you could not absolutely go from, from from a float session and then go right into a cryo session. I personally wouldn't recommend it.
No,
We've
not at
had
all.
we've had some session issues in the past where it's been a yoga studio. Somebody did yoga, and then even like a couple of hours later, they came back for a cryo session, and it wasn't a very serious burn, but they had a burn because the skin is, it's an organ and it's very sensitive.
Hmm.
I mean, if you ask me, maybe they should have a 24-hour, sort of policy, but I'll I'll let the business owners make that judgment call. The insurance company so far doesn't have a restriction,
Hmm.
um, a specific exclusion. So I'm not going to make a big fuss about it, but that's definitely, you don't want to go from hot to cold. And then, for the flotation centers, the risk is very minimal compared to a cryotherapy center.
Right. Yeah.
If you're floating in some water with some salt, definitely, uh, standard stuff like if you've had surgery, you've had healing wounds, you cannot, get into the water. But it's very benign. I think, anything that could go wrong there. I haven't seen any claims actually for flotation places. It was maybe some sort of slip and fall claim.
Right.
Um, but what is something to think about is in both businesses, people take off their clothes.
Hmm.
Okay. And there could be allegations of um, sexual nature,
Hmm.
massage envy. Their employees or independent contractors, whatever you want to call them, they've had dozens of situations. So they're facing a lot of big lawsuits now. So you cannot control your employees.
Right. That's a whole new light on things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
And that's something optional that we include in the policy.
Hmm. And but I feel like that would be. I mean, that is something that definitely could happen. All it takes is some guy or girl feeling just a bit too uncomfortable for them to bring it up. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to go anywhere, but even if that type of situation
Yeah.
comes up, like at all in any scale, that's a huge impact on your business, whether it be financially from a lawsuit or from a social
Oh
aspect.
yeah, they can go onto Yelp and
Yeah, yeah. All it takes is someone feeling really uncomfortable for them to uh, blow it up and make it uh, uh, blow up and make it
right.
public.
And since we're on this topic, I'll move on quickly to the other one, is the employment practices liability. So this has to do with your hiring, firing, and just overall employment practices. For example, if you have a sign on your window that says now hiring and somebody comes in and they're just not for the position, they can always say, well, the sign said you were hiring and you didn't hire me. I think I fit the position. They can easily sue you and then you have to defend.
That's a
It's,
thing.
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't.
You have to say accepting resumes instead of now hiring. Or even somebody can come in for a job interview. You don't go through the proper process of letting them know, thank you for the interview, but we decided to go with another applicant, whatever it was. Or you can dismiss somebody and they feel
That.
like they've been dismissed improperly. And It's a he said, she said thing, and the only way you can defend yourself is to go to court, to trial. Trials are very, very expensive. Just discovery is going to probably cost you around $20,000 for your lawyer to put the facts together
Mm-hmm.
on your end. It's like I said, it's outrageous, but what you have to do is sort of plan for the insurance expense. And if you build your business model around having an understanding that you're just going to have issues down the road, especially if you get more successful.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have even competitors um, that really want to take you down. If you're really a big problem for them, they'll send somebody to get hired and create an issue at your office or at your facility.
Just to throw you under the bus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I've seen it. Some people, now obviously this applies for every industry, but I've seen some cases where there is just some harsh competition in just one small town, and it gets insane. Like I know a lot of people, they might be uh, either newer to business, or they take that statement that you just said, and they're shaking their head right now and thinking, oh no, I mean, no, my competition would never do that.
Yeah.
It it
Competition
does it
will
does
try to poach
happen.
your employees. I've had it happen to me. I've had, competitors try to, not in the cryo space, in the cryo field space, but, we do other things as well. And um, I'm just used to it already. I'm like, okay, well, 80-20 rule. I'm like 80% of the time, my day is going to be okay. 20%, we're going to have some issues. So when something happens, I'm just numb to it.
Absolutely. That's why, what was it? Amazon? I think that's why Amazon was built in Seattle and not California. I could be wrong. It's either Amazon or something else, but it was for that reason why I swear, I think it was built in Seattle. Amazon had a chance to open up a headquarters in LA, but for that specific reason, for the employees coming in, they could be there to steal information, or they're hired from other companies. For that exact reason, Amazon was built in Seattle to stay away from that.
Yeah, I think. Well, I saw something recently on where Bill Gates said when he decided to go to Seattle, he said that he did not want to do the Silicon Valley because they could not. He knew that being there, uh, it'd be hard to keep secrets with all these
Hmm.
other technology companies there. So they moved to Seattle. So
Yeah, that's it. I just looked it up. It was Amazon. Amazon was founded in Seattle, Washington.
yeah,
But yeah, it really does happen. Now these are big scale companies,
I think
but
the listeners are probably going to get depressed. No.
no, yeah. Listen, not everyone out there is there to is there to take out your business. No, but I mean, honestly, within within the cryotherapy industry, I'm not heavily involved in the flotation industry, but the health and wellness industry is really supportive of each other. For the most part, they are there. I'm very active in the Facebook groups and just online presence. There's a lot of love and helping there, but I have seen the complete opposite. I've I've been on the phone with a client, and their competition calls them and tells them, "Hey, we're opening up a location, you know, right next door," uh, and then just calls to glow, like there is
Right.
just complete, polar opposites of people, and I mean that's just the price of doing business. I've It's just a wild ride, but it's really great that there's companies out there like yours, providing peace of mind, because really with insurance, that's probably the biggest selling factor, at least for me, that is, yeah, is that peace of mind. But you also, you do have the security behind it. But for me, peace of mind when it comes to insurance is the biggest selling point.
Yeah. I want to touch upon the um, interior of any facility.
Mhm.
So, and I want to talk about sort of the differences in property coverages. So we have a flotation center where we're insuring $600,000 worth of build outs. And if anybody that has that, you want to make sure, or any sort of build out, you want to make sure that's um, communicated with your broker. So if you have, let's say you have a cryotherapy center or float center, and you have desks, uh, TV, couch, fridge, computers, and say that's about $25,000. That would be considered business personal property. But then you have the build out, the chambers, not the chambers, anything basically that is permanently attached.
Oh, so like
That
the cryo rooms, the
right, right.
right.
That would be considered a tenant improvement. So if you have, for example, a cryo chamber that you can actually, when you move out, you can just take it out. That would be considered business personal property. And we do both sides. We do retail and wholesale and insurance. So we'll do the underwriting, and we'll also um, deal directly with the clients. And we get brokers sending us applications who that whether it's they don't know the cryo industry well enough, or they just maybe weren't properly trained. I don't know, but I have to go back and ask and say, why do you have $10,000 in business personal property listed here and then nothing else? These cryo chambers are worth a lot more than $10,000, and they'll have desks and TVs and this and that. So
Right.
it's, I feel like I'm doing somebody else's work, but you have to, if you own one of these centers, you have to make sure you read and look at your coverages, and if your broker can't go over that stuff, you just find a new one that can explain all of that. It's elementary stuff, but sort of the problem with our insurance industry is the threshold is not very high. You just need to go to school for about 52 hours, and then you get your license. You go take a test and you get your license, and then you're sort of on your own to figure it out. And then you hope, you have the proper mentor who can teach you the right things. And the problem is, even when we deal with a lot of companies, we have a lot of good brokers, but generally I find that they need a lot more training. So when I see stuff coming to us, I'm like, why would this doesn't make sense? So I go back to the broker. I'm like, no, you ask your client how much of the build out they've had, how much, if they have chambers, how many chambers, what's the replacement, what would it cost to replace it? And then, of course, never forget the business income and extra expense coverage. It's another
Hmm.
important thing. So let's say there's a fire, fine, you get your, chambers paid for, you get your build out paid for. But if you don't have any business income expense coverage, you're not getting paid, and you have recurring expenses.
All
So,
right. Yeah. That makes that. Yep. That makes a lot of sense.
but here's the process. So we get a phone call, and people are, and I totally understand it, because starting a business, you budget 100,000, you end up doing 175,000. So I get it. Everybody's just, trying to save some money because they're literally running out of money.
Mhm.
But with insurance, that's the one place that you should not cut any corners. Listen to your broker, buy the extra coverages. They're all connected to each other. Because insurance policies, I don't care if it's a $50,000 policy, it doesn't mean it has all the coverages in there. So you want to make sure everything that, from the general to the professional liability to the business interruption, business property, um, everything is there. Even the outdoor sign has to be separately listed.
Hmm. Why is that one? That one just piques my interest.
Yeah, I don't know why insurance companies do this, but the signage is always separate because it's typically a sort of an expensive piece. Um, it's on average maybe $5,000 or $6,000, and it's just separate. It's been like that for maybe 50 years.
Hmm. Interesting. I didn't know that. I learned a lot on this, but yeah, I mean that is all the questions that I had written down, and that was all the questions that some of the viewers requested. So if there's anything else that you'd like to touch up on that we haven't yet.
Yeah, actually, I do. So if anybody has the time, go online to the FDA's website, search for cryotherapy, and you guys will find a warning issued to the people from the FDA. And he basically says that a lot of cryotherapy centers are making health claims. So this helps you improve this and that. So you have to be very, very careful when you say this is good for arthritis. You can get in a lot of trouble. I realize it's hard not to, but the FDA has a lot of other pending issues. And, at some point, if the injuries continue, they're going to probably come in and say, you know what, you guys are going to need a medical director if you guys want to continue operating because people are getting injured.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's Yeah, and I had to talk with someone about that. Now, that is a real serious topic that everyone kind of, I feel like not everyone knows, but the people who do know, it's kind of like in the back of their mind, but you don't talk about it, right? It's like this thing that is there. It's like the elephant in the room. No one wants to talk
Yeah,
about it. It is going to, when it comes to cryotherapy, and I hate to say this, it's going to go down one way or another, but it is going to go down when the U.S. government, and the FDA step in to make the final decision on where the industry is really going to go. Because right now, for the past few years, and for the next couple of years, it's cryotherapy, this whole industry, or this part of the health and wellness industry, is just kind of in a bit of a twilight zone where, you know, it's not FDA approved, but it's got all these great results, but people are getting burned, but you don't need to have really any experience operating the machines. And it's a bunch of pieces just up in the air. And, the FDA could, come in, it's like you said, the government could, step in, interview, and see, hey, yeah, if you want to use this type of machinery, great, get a medical a person on, get someone on staff who's qualified. Here are the qualifications. Or they could say,
yeah,
yeah, cryotherapy does work, it's safe, and it's FDA approved, and continue on your way. Yeah, it's complete opposites, but it can go one way or the other, but it's going to go, one way. Yeah.
yeah, and it's when marketing, they have to be really, really careful. We use words like supports, um, muscle pain, supports, like I think if you look at just vitamins and herbs and how they're marketed in a way, because they're they've improved a lot over the years, and you can kind of get an idea. But I think the bigger thing might be to engage in Washington, D.C. I've actually For another industry, I've flown into Washington D.C. and we had these like lobbying fly-ins where we went and we met. You have to schedule the meetings with your respective Senate and Congress offices.
Hmm.
And you go, typically you're not going to meet the senator, but you're going to meet maybe the chief of staff, maybe the health, the person who's in charge of like I forget what the official name is, but basically anything to do does with health. The health secretary, I think is what was the name. And you guys have to go out there and just educate them and just say, you know, this is an upcoming industry. Here's what we're doing. Here's, you know, sort of the results, and you know that's basically it. You know, we'd like to grow this business, and I will tell you right now, the Republicans will give you guys the most support because they are business friendly. They will listen to you, whereas the Democrats, so their offices, like if I'm from California, Dianne Feinstein's office, Barbara Boxer's office, we had terrible luck. Just, I mean, you do a whole presentation and they're not even listening, which was, you know, quite disappointing.
Hmm.
So I'm not picking sides, but I'm just,
Right. Yeah. No,
you
you're just
know,
stating from your personal experience.
yeah.
That's perfectly fine. Yeah. No. All right. Yeah, that's really cool. So, riot in Washington D.C. guys, March 23rd. Here we go. And no, but no,
Get
that
your
is
signs, get your signs together.
yeah. That'd be a cool thing to be a part of. To get something like that organized. And
It's actually a fascinating experience. I will tell you, the first time I was just frightened to death. I was like, what am I doing?
yeah.
But then it was actually empowering. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that'd be something very interesting to do, and I know just the person to plan something like that with. So that.
And basically you want, and you want to also, when you're there, you want to find out from them how to communicate with the FDA
Hmm.
effectively. Because I'll give you this idea. I was watching a video about the vape industry, and this was they had a panel of FDA individuals from the FDA, and I forget his position, I forget his name, but he said, we prefer big tobacco because then we just have to deal with 4 people or 4 companies. Even though they're bigger, we'll find a way to control them, but at least we're not dealing with thousands of companies. So what, by organizing, maybe creating an association, what you guys will have is a communication line with the FDA where the FDA will know, oh, okay, here, look at that. They have members in every state, and make sure these members are paying. They have paying members in every state. So if we want to communicate something to their director, to the executive director, then we know we have a phone we can pick up, or an email we can send and communicate with everybody at once, or for most of them at once.
Right.
So you want to make sure you guys have that.
Yeah, that's some really helpful advice. Yeah, that's really awesome. Okay, yeah. So Sarkis, so for the people listening, because we get viewers who haven't opened yet, to people who are opening in 2 weeks, to people who have been in the cryotherapy industry since it first started, what, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, when the first center opened in the US. So like we cater to an audience of everyone. Where can they find you?
So I will say that we're only licensed to do business in the United States. On all the 50 states, we cannot write in Canada or outside the country, at least not yet, and or probably not in the near future. But to get a quote, all you have to do is go to Cryo, CRYO, Insurance Pros, PROS.com. The name of my company is actually Calco Commercial Insurance. We do other things, but Cryo is one of our biggest lines. So by going to cryoinsurancepros.com, you click on the thing that's a button that says get a quote. It's a short form. It gives us a quick overview. You fill it out. You'll get a call back or an email with sort of a description of what we're offering. And if it works for you, we use electronic signature. So you'll buy your policy essentially online, and that's it. It's a newer way of doing business. Actually, we've been using electronic signatures since 2008, but
Right. It's
we've
something that's, picking up speed.
yeah. Actually, when I first started using it, I had a pushback from the insurance company saying, "Wait, no, we need wet signatures." And I was like, "No, stop. You're gonna have to accept these." But yeah, we'll be very, very happy. We're looking forward to assisting anybody. And I don't think there's been a situation where we haven't been able to assist someone. Even if you have a current policy and you just want us to look at it, we can. And if there's been multiple times that I could remember personally where I've said, it looks like you're good. You don't need to switch now. First, tell you what, go check to see, make sure that your current provider, whether they will or will not take, let's say, your body contouring device.
Mhm.
And if they say no, then let me work on your account. So you don't want to just buy it just because, you're in a rush to get the machine. I'm like, just wait 2 to 3 days. So for those who we can help, we will help. With those who we can't, at least we give you guys a second review, second opinion.
Awesome. Alrighty. This has been the CryoHelpers podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you leave a like, comment down suggestions for new topics. And as always, if you want to be on with me and the other co-hosts, just feel free to reach out. And with that being said, hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.
Bye, everybody.